Honored Chair, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. It is indeed a great pleasure and a privilege for me to be the first presenter this morning in this KDU Symposium 2014, which is being held to widen our knowledge, our understanding on research-related topics, areas, and my attempt for next 10 to 12 minutes would be to share my understanding with you on developing a land doctrine for the Sri Lankan Army, a research study that I have undertaken. What is a doctrine? Why it is needed? How to get about? What challenges we face in formulating one? And finally, the advantages of having a doctrine will be of my focus of attention. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quote the famous Sun Tzu, the Chinese military strategist and the philosopher. With this understanding, a military doctrine is an intellectually rigorous document which guides conduct military operations. It can be defined as the fundamental principle by which military forces guide their action in support of reaching an objective. These principles, the doctrinal concept extracted or carved out from the careful, enthralling study of the history of skirmishes, battles, campaigns, and wars, not necessarily from the victories only, but also from the defeats and the stalemates that each country has experienced through their history of combat. Obviously, a specific and a scientific method in forming a course of action is needed for the authority, for its military leaders, for the military commanders to approach stressful, perilous, confusing and unfamiliar situations with a clarity of thought. It is a logical brainstorming exercise at strategic level to defend a country. It's a common platform to allow working in an unfamiliar area of national interest to conduct war, to defend the territorial interest. Unfortunately, in our army, military doctrine is a subject that has not received the attention it deserves, despite the fundamental importance it has in determining how the army to think, how it to be organized, what experiences to be carried forward, how they currently fight, train and adapt to the changing operational conditions, but more importantly, look to the future. There are a number of reasons for the absence of a military doctrine for the Sri Lanka. Legacy of colonization, post-independence, Cold War and its implications. Insurrections one after the other starting from 1971, 1987 and the full-scale guerrilla war which ended in 2009 are some of the main reasons why the Sri Lanka never felt the requirement of its own doctrine or to shape up and develop a doctrine to safeguard the national security environment. However, Sri Lankan land forces rank among one of the most combat experienced armies in the world, especially in counter-terrorism operations. A specified land doctrine developed on the experiences that were gained, especially in changing operational conditions, and look to the changing future is something the Sri Lankan military will have to do as a matter of priority. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let me move on to the core of the matter in my presentation. Doctrine is what is taught and believed, assimilated and applied. It is the professional body of knowledge of our profession. To make it further simplified, it can be described as what we believe about the best way to do things. If an army is to represent an effective deterrent in the peacetime, it must be seen to be physically capable of fighting and mentally and morally prepared to do so. Such an army must be clear how the complex situations, difficulties, and hardships that will inevitably arise in the combat are to be dealt with. Conduct of war is a matter of applying both science and art. The military doctrine establishes guidelines on how best to employ the military instrument of the national power to achieve strategic objectives. The principal purpose of military doctrine is to provide the armed forces with guidance for the conduct of operations. Even though the Sri Lankan army possesses sound military prowess and philosophical military concepts which derived from various battle experiences, it was unable to formulate an intellectually rigorous doctrine for many years. Doctrine endures when it is taught, assimilated, acted on appropriately, and adjusted as a condition change. As such, it has three functions: philosophical, practical, and predictive. Philosophical, based on enduring lessons from the past; practical, making it relevant to the contemporary operations; and predictive, taking in foreseeable developments in terms of threat, technology, and domestic policies. It is revealed that logical start point of winning the war is beginning with the word knowing. Know is understanding the methodology of war. To understand this, any country it needs an intellectually rigorous and a credible doctrine. Such a doctrine should be dissolved from the diversified fields of interest. Each interest must be introspectively and carefully considered to formulate a compatible doctrine. Ladies and gentlemen, in doctrinal terms, doctrine can be applied in three interwoven levels, namely strategically, operationally, and at tactical levels. In strategic level, it is the vision and see as a broader picture. The operational level provides a bridge between the strategic and the tactical levels. At the operational level, campaigns and operations are planned and conducted with the aim of translating strategic objectives into a series of tactical actions. Operational planning encompasses the maneuver of tactical units as well as the provision and sustainment of logistic and administrative support. At the tactical level, missions are planned and executed with the force applied directly against adversaries with the intent of achieving victory at a particular time and space. Tactical successes collectively contribute to achieving operational and strategic objectives and thus support the policy and the national strategy. As I said earlier in my presentation, the Sri Lankan experience in combating terrorism is one of the unique of its kind in counter-revolutionary war in the contemporary world. It has won one phase of the war, the guerrilla, or even the open war against a formidable guerrilla army. But the real threat for the country is far deeper than it could be seen. As discussed in the recently concluded Defense Seminar 2004 under the theme, Challenges to a Rising Nation, speakers from all over the world discussed, highlighted the challenges Sri Lanka will be facing in this ever-changing world order. Of course, yes, Sri Lanka has its domestic issues. We are yet to establish a proper identity in this multicultural, multilinguistic, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, plural society. We are yet to establish that harmony among the different groups of people that were systematically separated and widened their differences for the advantages of those colonial masters. We are a country that has been looted for nearly 500 years and need to establish our economical advances and the strength. We are just recovering from a 3-decade deadly war. We are having challenges in resettling displaced, re-radicalization and reintegration of ex-combatants, build up infrastructure and building a nation. But our real threat is much deeper. In this change in 21st century, which is labeled as the Asian century, Sri Lanka is located in one of the most important geostrategic locations, not to be missed out in any way. Developing Asian giants and their needs, the stable domestic security environment within the country, Sri Lanka will stand out to play a significant role in the regional security in particular. The grey areas that I discussed earlier all have the potential to be blown out of proportion, internationalize them to suit the hidden agendas. Asia is the largest continent in the world, with 60% of the world's population in it. And the Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean, and Sri Lanka lies exactly at the maritime nexus of the East and the West. 8 out of the 20 fast-growing economies in the world, with an estimated of by 2030, Asia's economy will be bigger than of USA and EU combined together. 3 out of the 5 BRICS nations, nuclear power base in the world like Russia, China, India, Pakistan and North Korea. 50% of the world containerized cargo traffic passes through the region, and 2/3 of the world's oil travel across the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka's geostrategic location will interplay a great power base in the power balance between the India, China and USA. It will also be of enormous strategic importance for the trade and energy security and for the maritime dominance in the Indian Ocean, and it will remain the understanding that whoever controls the Indian Ocean will dominate Asia. As Admiral Nelson once said, Trincomalee, the finest natural harbor in the world, as Winston Churchill said, the most strategic harbor in the world, Trincomalee remains the 3rd largest natural harbor with its capacity to house nuclear submarines. Newly constructed preeminent Hambantota, just 10 to 12 nautical miles away from great sea lanes of communication, the world's busiest maritime communication passage where hundreds of ships passes it daily, Sri Lanka's geographical location will be of critical concern globally. 5-hub concept, the Sri Lanka will be developing around. Let's look at the aviation hub alone. 3.5 to 4 hours to so many destinations. This widening scope will have room for widening other security issues such as human smuggling, drug trafficking, arms smuggling, nuclear testing, religious extremism, money laundering, etc. In conclusion, Sri Lanka Army needs to articulate a doctrine that binds all conceptual concepts, moral components and the physical components together to meet all challenges for its future, based on which every arm in the army, every regiment in the army, every directorate in the army and every training establishment in the army will have to develop its own doctrine to meet its mission to achieve. These doctrines will provide a base to keep strategic thinking down to the last soldier of the army, and it will create a condition to achieve victory over the adversaries on a cohesive footing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General, for your very, very comprehensive lecture.